Hello, it's been a while since we looked at an Adelphi independent bottling here at the Single Malt Review, which is a shame because they're one of the outstanding independent bottlers in Scotland.
Yes, they are outstandingly pricey as well, which is why I don't have them as often as I would like. But this one, their Breath of Speyside for this year, not so pricey as a great many others. Probably because it's only 10 years old, which is always a good way of making whisky a wee bit affordable. This is their Breath of Speyside. It's something they bring out more or less year to year. It's usually, I mean, it's always Speyside, obviously. It's usually an unnamed distillery, and it's usually really, really good. It's a good sort of cheaper way of having something that Adelphi thinks is really, really good. But
usually suspected to be Glenfarclas. Right?
It's Glenfarclas. It has been Glenfarclas in the past. I'll say that much. Not that I wouldn't want to imply I'm deeply current on all of the Breath of Speyside releases. Sometimes they're very, very old and so very, very exclusive, which makes them quite hard to get hold of. To see one that's 10 years old, that's one of the youngest ones they've done, and so that's how I was able to sort of seize on this one. But in terms of information it does give us, that is clearly a sherry cask, and it is a bottle of 552, which is about exactly as much as I'd expect someone to get out of a sherry butt at 10 years old. So I'd say that's exactly where it came from, a sherry butt, and the strength is 57.9, which is pretty typical for 10 years old. So fairly strong as far as whiskey goes.
I kind of like Adelphi's policy of not giving too much away on the label. Even when they tell you the distiller and so forth, you don't get overwhelmed with tasting notes.
You certainly only get exactly what you need. If you want tasting notes, you can go online and throw yourself down the into the library of Adelphi's website. I actually haven't gone there recently, but it used to be a hell of a thing to try and navigate. More complicated every year as they brought stuff out as well, because they... It's dire need of a search function is what it used to be, but they may have upgraded it since then. I don't know. I wouldn't want to say. But at any rate, this is what we've got here, and I think this is a very, very rather typical whiskey of a certain distillery, and I think that for a number of both whiskey reasons and also cynical reasons, which I will get into. But first off, we'll have a wee taste of what we've got.
It's a lovely dark amber colour too. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's dark. It's not super dark, so it could be from a first fill or it could be from a second fill. I don't know, but it'd be one of the others. It's definitely not third. Third is right out, as they say.
It's some quite thick, clinging oils on the side of the glass, as you'd expect from something of this strength.
It's a pretty solid old whiskey, but
that is it's not fiery on those.
It's not fiery as some. I can get. I wouldn't want to stick it all the way in there, but it's approachable at its full strength.
Got a little bit of a rubbery, slightly sulphury prickle, a bit of the Edredura effect.
Yeah, there is a bit of sulphur there, which implies that it's quite a fresh sherry cask. That's sort of a point towards a first fill rather than a second, because that normally gets burnt off in its first its first discharge of that cask.
There's a little bit of fruit and some perfumey florals too.
It's got a lot of fruit and spice, sort of the dark, deep fruits that you normally expect from sherry wood, less and less seen these days.
And just a hint of milk chocolate.
Yeah, actually, that's a good one. It's more than a hint once you're thinking on those lines.
They're still struggling with that sheer
there's
brutal intensity of the alcohol and the other aromas too. But
But no, it's very, very, very pleasant on the nose. It's a very, very sort of sweet, moorish kind of a thing. It's not necessarily all that cerebral, being only 10 years old, but there's a lot to like in this one. So we'll have a wee nip at full strength, which is not how I recommend drinking this one, but we'll do it for science.
It's quite intense.
Not what you call smooth at full strength. I think this is a whiskey which kind of mandates a little bit of water, added. So I'm just going to do that straight away because I have difficulty really pulling anything out of that inferno of flavour at
lots
full
of
strength.
pepper, huge amounts of alcohol, some thick, oily characters which are hard to place. So we'll need some water.
So bringing it down, and not by a huge amount, we're
11.
probably still 46% here or so. And there we are. Now that's a bit more approachable, and there's a hell of a lot going on.
Oh yeah. Ginger, sultanas, dates, bit of pepper. Still some of that milk chocolate's coming through on the tongue as well as the nose, and I like it.
Yeah, it's sort of, the chocolate's reduced just slightly with water, which is a lot of, what usually happens. But, man, there is just an explosion of sort of sherry characters in there. There's a lot of sort of, there's some dark cherry almost in there, some sort of glacé cherry, cocktail cherries.
Lots of rich fruit cake or spicy loaf flavours.
Hugely sort of deep spectrum, and it's so typical of one distillery, and that distillery is Glenfarclas, that's bringing the whiskey side of things, that sherried without being a Boona style sherry bomb. That sort of slightly, I don't know how I'd necessarily put it into one sentence, how I classify Glenfarclas. It's a slightly more, it's a thoughtful sherry matured whiskey. 100% sherry matured, but it's,
intensely but not overwhelmingly sherry matured.
It's a sherry matured whiskey which has a tremendous strength of its own distillery character. Always manages to come through, no matter how, even when you're dealing with a 10-year-old, potentially first fill sherry butt explosion like this one, there's still a huge amount of distillery character coming through from that, and to me it speaks hugely strong of Glenfarclas. I'd be very confident making that particular bet, and doubly so because of almost any distillery out there. Glenfarclas is militantly protective of its name. It does not like its whiskey and does not allow its whiskey to come out with the Glenfarclas name on it. It's always got to be called something like, famously, the whiskey that cannot be named. Very famous Adelphi bottling, many years ago now, over 5 years ago I think. It comes out as all sorts of funny things. Probably Speyside's finest by Douglas Lang, back before the split. It was old malt cask bottling. All kinds of funny things, because they will not allow their brand to get out there by other people's names. Fiercely independent. The one bottler which can pull a fast one on that and subvert their protectionism is Cadenheads, because they were able to prove, as we were saying in the previous video with the Gordon and MacPhail bottled Glen Grant, that's the one. Cadenheads were able to prove that they were selling Glenfarclas whiskey under the name Glenfarclas before Glenfarclas were. So they are still allowed. So you will once in a very blue moon see a bottle of Cadenheads independently, single cask Glenfarclas, but not commonly. We'll say I saw exactly 2 when I was in Scotland, and that was trawling all of the whiskey bars I could find. So yeah. Anyway, Adelphi do not have that privilege, so Breath of Speyside we are stuck with, but a very good whiskey we have regardless. While I ruminate over my scores, have you got any parting comments for this one?
Well, adding some water has made it much more drinkable, obviously. It's preserved a lot of those characters. It's also exacerbated some of that initial rubbery, sulphury nose, which we got first off when we first poured it. And that is acting to its detriment a little. It's nullifying some of the spicy, sweet, fruity, always all-round quintessentially Speyside characters. That's going to bring it down a little. And I still rate it an 87.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's relatively young, obviously, but not super young. Also, obviously, it's huge flavours, some explosive Speyside character.
Yeah, it's explosive Speyside character, and it's almost more explosively Glenfarclas. It's that particular sort of deep, rich take on Speyside, almost a category unto itself as Glenfarclas whiskey. That's exactly where I'm going. 87 from me as well. I think a way to describe this would be a way of getting it's Glenfarclas family cask quality Glenfarclas, just under a different label for a different price. at a slightly different age. This is a wee bit younger than Glenfarclas likes to bottle their family casks, but in terms of quality of cask and sort of intensity of the whisky, this is of the same level of quality, I think, based on the one we tasted and reviewed ages and ages and ages back. It was a lot older than this one, but I think this has the same force of character that one really brings. So this one I do recommend. It's still not cheap. It's still a pretty jolly expensive 10-year-old whiskey, but for fans of the style, for fans of sherry matured Speyside, and particularly for fans of Glenfarclas that want to try something that would otherwise be very, very difficult to get hold of, cask strength whiskey, this is a really, really good way into it. So if you're interested, it should be available for... Ooh, I don't know, it might take a bit of a hit come Christmas time, but it should be on the shelves now. And yeah, it's a recurring thing. So, I mean, it might be 21 years old and $300 next year, but you know, it'll always come back around in the future. So do keep your eyes open.
You can guarantee with Adelphi, you'll never get a really cheap Adelphi, but you'll never ever get a bad one either. They give you relatively scarce information on the label, but you're always going to get something which is quite special and has been chosen for good reasons.
Yeah, not sadly one we don't see as often as I would like, but as Dave says, I could never say I've had a bad Adelphi, and it also ranks as some of the best whiskies I've ever tasted. So yeah, interesting company. So we'll keep moving along here. I am just looking at the lineup here, and I think we might have just a few from Glenglasser coming up next. So stay tuned if you're a fan of those ones. Slanger, keep safe. We'll be right back.